Greetings from Oxford, and welcome to another edition of Progressive Discoveries. Now, I don't know how you feel about the sea. I grew up by the sea and spent many happy, carefree hours playing on sandy shorelines and scrabbling over rocks as the waves sort of crashed noisily and threatened frothy sprays of water, or when you were climbing the cliffs and the wind sort of dances in your hair. And wow, the sea, there really is nothing quite like it. The smell of the sea, the sounds of the sea, the allure of the waves breaking, crashing, and the rippling of currents, and the ebb and flow of the tides. There is really nothing like the sea and living by the sea. Living in Oxford as I do now, I no longer enjoy either the measure of proximity or that unique kind of sort of intimacy that comes from just letting your eyes linger and roam over the surface of the water. And yet, every day something deep within calls to me. There's a kind of longing, an aching kind of fondness that wants to be there again. It calls me home, and it's not home as in a place of safety or a place of security. It's to a very curious world where things are, I don't know, unfathomed, unknown, unexplored, mysterious. And I think here and only here, when you're at the sea, when you're looking at the water, that the unsettling possibilities of what lurks beneath the water exerts as significance, if not more of a presence than that you can see above the water. And the swelling surface is just suggestive. It's a threshold of the interplay for what is above and what is below. So, what does this have to do with anything? I've waxed lyrical about childhood memories and my longing for the sea, but what has this got to do with progressive discoveries? Well, the answer comes to the album that we're looking at today. It's Andy Nixon's first solo album. It's called The Waterline. And for me, you see, I think it's not only profoundly disturbing as an album, but I think the music is also deeply moving. And what struck me immediately on listening to this album is that it just imaginatively explores all those rich nuances, all the intricacies that come with thinking about waterlines, and using this metaphor of the waterline as a window for making sense of our experiences of life. And really, within the first track, this is an album that just resonated so deeply with that sense of aching, that call that I feel within. And really, I suspect anyone who is equally familiar with that pull of the sea, that lure to be on the seashore, will quickly discover a similar connection when you listen to this record. So, having waxed lyrical, I think we ought to dive straight in. Forgive the pun. It's not the only one I suspect that's going to come over the next 15 or 20 minutes. So let's dive in. Let's dive in with the opening track, and the opening track is called Infinity Blue.
There's a stillness out there somewhere. Look There's a tide that flows between the stranded and the free. There's a boat on the water drifting gently on the sea. There's a thought that sails around the surface of my mind. There's an answer floating just below the waterline, infinity blue. Infinity blue. Infinity blue. Infinity blue.
That was Infinity Blue. It is the opening track to the album The Waterline, which is the first solo album from Andy Nixon. Now, before we listen to this, I was sort of painting in large brushstrokes about why I find this album quite appealing. And I think, you know, across 11 meticulously crafted, really quite beautifully painted musical vignettes, Andy Nixon just deftly captures the intrigue of the sea, the mystery of the water, and the promises as well as the threats, both visible and invisible, that play and mingle with each other on either side of the water's surface. And you see, for me, the music is just so elegant, it's so nuanced, it's so profuse in its subtlety, and really so expansive in its exploration of life's experiences, that time and time again it inspires, it provokes all sorts of thoughtful reflections and musings. Now, we've listened to the opening track, and the vibe, the atmosphere, the tone, it's haunting, it's languid, it's almost what you'd expect from an album that deals with water, with the sea. And you have this richly echoed piano that captures a wistful line of thought, that evokes a sense of longing, that provokes a feeling of lostness. And the lyrics back this up. The lyrics say, "There's a boat on the water sailing gently out to sea. There's a feeling I get when your eyes look at me." And you know, the lyrics suggest a weary, if intense, kind of emotional journey here. There is a sense of intrigue, there is a sense of lonely thoughtfulness that muses to itself. And again, these are the lyrics. "There's a thought that sails around the surface of my mind. There's an answer floating just below the waterline." And this is immediately followed by a very passionate outburst from the guitar that briefly disturbs these placid musical waters, before it reverts again to this calm sense of peaceful tranquility. It really is the perfect introduction to the album and the perfect entree to what is following. Now, we're going to skip a track and we're going to move on to track number 3. And I think before I say anything about it, let's have a listen to it now, and I'll offer some thoughts and comments after we've listened to it. This is track number 3. It's called Tide, and it's from the album The Waterline by Andy Nixon.
His chances and sailed across his Black Sea. Beneath the water lay relics from another time. While he reflected on the signs he knew he should have seen, he trimmed the sails and took the bearing of another line. Come to ditch the plans he'd been devising, a fading horizon and the bitter sails of promise torn. The fact remained he knew the 7 seas were rising. To get back home there'll be no port in any storm. Own admission to the sea, sailing on, tied by the ropes of his own conviction, in the grip of the siren song. She couldn't reach him, just memories flowing through her, into her heart, like arrows shot from every vein. Tied to his past and tied to his future, he couldn't find the right way to break out of the lane. Tied to the mast by his own admission, to the sea, sailing on, tied by the ropes of his own conviction, in the grip of the siren song. And he lifted his eyes to the night sky, traced the lines of the constellations, from the North Star to the sword of Orion. He could see his life through the points of connection, the enemies of promise, the waves of regret, the fading horizons, ambitions unmet, the measure of success, the comparisons of love, the connection so clear in the lines above. Close his eyes to the daylight, to break the tie of the lone star shining, that one star that could take him to the answer, to break the cycle like the stars unwinding, the enemies of promise, the waves of regret, fading horizons, ambitions unmet, the measure of success, the comparisons of love, the connection so clear in the lines above.
That was track number 3. It's called Tide, and of course there is the play on words here between tide as in T-I-D-E and tide as in the name of this track, T-I-E-D. It's from the album The Waterline by Andy Nixon. Now, if you compare that to track number 1, I mean, this is really quite a distinct change of pace. And here, what Andy is doing is riffing on the myth of the sirens, the siren voices, and he links it with the whole idea of addiction and the dangerous tides of addiction. And by addiction, I mean, again, it's in that dual sense of tide and tides, the waves of addiction that overtake people, as well as the sense of being tied to an addiction. And these are the opening lyrics. He says, "He took his chances and sailed across his black sea. Beneath the water lay relics from another time." You see, and that speaks to the ruinous collapse of dreams, the abandonment of hopes of a life that is slowly unravelling and fragmenting because of addiction. And again, the lyrics continued, "Tied to the mast by his own admission, to the sea he's sailing on, tied by the ropes of his own conviction, in the grip of the siren's song." Now, in the myth, of course, the sailors tied themselves to the masts to avoid them throwing themselves oversea or succumbing to the siren's voices. And here again, he's capturing that sense of not being in control. And when you're in the grip of an addiction, no one and nothing can break the spell. And again, the lyrics pick this up. She couldn't reach him, just memories flowing through her. Into her heart like arrows shot from every vein. Tied to his past and tied to his future, he couldn't find the right way to break out of the pain. And as soon as these lyrics finish, again you have a very forceful guitar solo, a penetrating guitar voice that just pierces a temporary space where the drums are silent. It's like a cry of desperation before the beat returns and the cycle continues again. Or take the next track, the track number 4. It's called On Brothers Water. It's a very different kettle of fish. I'm sorry, that's another pun coming on here. It's a different kettle of fish altogether. The track starts with this very light vocal and it adopts a kind of narrative voice. But what it's narrating is a kind of, well, it's not a kind of, it is an 18th century story of 2 teenage brothers who drowned crossing a frozen lake. And the light opening transforms into a fuller, more substantial sound. And the lyrics go like this. A dark September day, 2 brothers on their way, friends on the other side, all fears were cast aside. The ice thick on broad water. Like lambs before the slaughter, the sun and lake conspire, fulfilling hell's desire. The guitar explodes with this boundless but very tightly controlled energy. And the message is clear. We can never be sure of our footing despite how things appear. Vulnerability surrounds us at all times. And the lake that was once called Broad Water was later renamed Brothers Water, and hence the title of the track. Let's listen to a third track now. Let's listen to track number 5. It's called The Myth of Uncertainty. And what I'd like you to do is not only listen to the lyrics on this one, but listen to the keyboard at the end and what the keyboards are doing. I think it's absolutely fabulous stuff. This is track number 5. It's called The Myth of Uncertainty. It's from the album The Waterline, and it's by Andy Nixon.
Let your story take another turn. Let the road wind. Let the furnace of ambition burn. undecided, torn between the two you thought you'd really need. You feel divided, hung between the devil and the deep blue sea. The myth of uncertainty will rise. Take the narrative you listen to down a new road. See the structure of your history as the dead load. Find the detail, read between the lines, see the truth unfold. Let yourself fail, don't let your fears be your truth untold. Locked in your memories hold inside. Conversations flow like an endless road. Feeling like I could just let them go, like a broken code.
That was track number 5. It's called The Myth of Uncertainty. It's from the album The Waterline, and it's by Andy Nixon. And I said as we came into this, take a listen to the keyboard at the end. Now, the keyboardist on this track is Bob Jackson from the band Badfinger. And for me, that exquisite keyboard work just completely steals the scene at the end of the song. And if you listen to nothing else about this album, my God, just let this song sink into your soul. Now, the lyrics opening, let your story take another turn, let the road wind, let the furnace of ambition burn in your own mind. You see, one of the things it's one of my favourite sayings, and I say it to anyone who will listen, self-doubt is really quite a terrible thing. It's a crippling thing. And the lyrics continue, undecided, hung between the devil and the deep blue sea, the myth of uncertainty will rise. And Andy follows this up with a refrained, a controlled, a very dignified guitar, which signals control, a sense of purpose, a sense of certainty. But then change comes, the lyrics change. They say, I stood corrected, listened and accepted. Every word you gave, felt connected. Loosening the grip on all the ego craved, and every mistake I made untied. And then you launch into this glorious, seamless keyboard that continues the thought. It's agile, it's bewitching, it's utterly seductive. It's just magnificent. Why not? Let's listen to a final track. This is track. Let's take the 9th track. It's called Still. And again, take a listen to the lyrics in particular, and see if you can work out what's going on here. This is track number 9. It's called Still. It's from the album The Waterline, and it's by Andy Nixon.
Like a warning shot across our bow, taking time and stealing tide by the snow moon with a front of ground. Still we just sail on to the storm. It weighs on our minds, eyes open wide. In the grip of its teeth, we know we'll be torn by the force of the wave we ride. Still we just sail on. Sail on. Strawberry moon riding high in our hopes that the wind will change. We're beneath a forbidden sky, constant bearing, decreasing range. Still we just sail on through the storm, dragging anchor, our fears descend. She's in irons, it rages on. We're paid out to the bitter end. Still we just sail on. Still we just sail on. His faith in his captain is now all but dead. Bosun's eyes fixed on the tempest ahead. I'll save every man if this ship is my last. Take in the topsail, strike down the mast. We would have had time, we knew all the danger, but you sailed us blind to a reverent failure. We were tied to your faith in the face of the want, held by the cross to the mouth of the storm. Quarter decks are in disarray. Summer sun sinking low. One mistake, there'll be hell to pay. Still we just sail on.
That was track number 9. It's called Still. It's from the new solo album The Waterline by Andy Nixon. Now, I think what you notice as soon as this track starts is that it has a different tone. It has a different atmosphere to it. It opens full of menace, full of threat. You have this brooding, ominous atmosphere that rides on the back of a throbbing bass line. Here you should think COVID. Here you should think about the unimaginable impact on the NHS. Think about the unspeakable devastation on people's lives. The unspeakable havoc that COVID wreaked on people's daily lives. And the almost casual, the carefree cries of the guitar below a vocal which speaks of desperation even in the midst of perseverance. The lyrics say, "Still we just sail on as the storm, the wind and the water flow. Come the cold moon, we'll be worn to the bone in the water below." Now here we have, in these lyrics, you have an allusion to Shakespeare. You have an allusion to The Tempest. As the storm rages uncontrollably, as COVID does its worst. You have Louise Wilson's assuring vocals that are powerful, that are encouraging, that exhort us. Still we sail on. And actually we're happy to do so. We sail on come rain or shine, despite the battering, despite the storm, despite the worst that the world can throw at us. We will endure. Eesh, I mean, my goodness me. The Waterline is really, from the moment I first started listening to it, it just strikes me as being such a remarkable achievement. And to pick just 4 songs here for your particular attention has been really quite a difficult task, because the quality of the songwriting across the entire album is just utterly exceptional. And I think what you can already see as well from the songs I've chosen, that the level of diversity you can expect to encounter from start to finish as you listen to this album. Each song is different and yet connected. Each song contributes something to a wider whole, but no song is the same. And part of what makes this album remarkable for me is that you have this really quite fiercely intelligent application of the concept of the waterline. You have this ingenious exploration of the metaphor of the waterline that creates an album which not only invites you to share the resonances that come through each of the songs, but which also serves as this kind of musical tide that carries you along in its wake. That sometimes will support you, that sometimes will embrace you, but at other times will just threaten to overwhelm you and to submerge you and to engulf you. And I think that's what you have to do when you surrender to this album. You have to submerge yourself. Submerge yourself in its very perceptive charms. Soak in its inventive delights. Enjoy its really quite delicious sophistication. Surf the playfulness of its musical currents. Let it carry you to horizons that will repay repeated listens, repeated explorations. And just like the aching call of the sea, which is where we started this edition of Progressive Discoveries, that aching that lies deep within, this is an album that will not fail to move you and that will not fail to change you. It really is a remarkable album, and I highly recommend it to you.
on the west side of the lake, north end of the pass. As the day began to break, reflecting sun on glass, I could feel it in the air by the waterside, only ever half aware of where the story lies. On Brothers War.